Hi, and welcome to Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. We're going to take a flight today in the Cessna Citation Longitude, and we're going to go from Santa Barbara to San Francisco International Airport. We're going to do an RNAV approach, and I'm going to take you along with me. We'll try and explain some information, so let's click Ready to Fly. First, we'll get our plane ready and started, but I just want to see how close we are to the runway. I tried to go close, we seem to be pretty close, so that's all good. Let's go down to here and get rid of our yoke. One left click. Then just behind the yoke, we've got our LGen. Left click once on. Right gen. Left click once on. Bus tie. APU gen to put that to on, the APU gen. Left click on left battery and left click on right battery. Go down to the very back here. We've just got the APU. I'm going to move this into start. Left click and left click. You'll hit start and go back to on. Then I've got two covers here. Just going to open the two covers. Left click on run, left click on run. Close the two covers. Whoops, we need to put that one back on. And then that cover is closed. I'm going to start the right engine. Left click once on the right engine. Got the left engine. Left click once on the left engine. Got a speed parking brake down here. I'm going to left click that. We'll talk about the speed brake in a moment. And then we're going to go have a look at the overhead panel. We're going to left click on the recog and the pulse. We're going to left click on the wind inspection and the anti-collision. We'll just put as many lights on as we can. I'll have a little talk about the information that we've got up here. We've got up here the flight director button. This is all sort of autopilot functions. In the top left, we've got the flight director. If you left click the flight director button, what does it do? Well, down here you'll get a purple magenta symbol. So if I try and keep it on the screen, flight director, you notice that comes away when I take it off and comes back when I put it on. That is the information that the computer would be telling us to fly manually. So it's a bit of a guidance system for us, and that would be the information the computer has, and it would be telling us this is where we want you to head. If we wanted to fly it manually, we could do so through the flight director. Then we've got a course information. So down here we've got a green line, and we can turn that line around if we knew the direction of, say, a runway and we wanted to make sure we were heading in that direction. We could double check with this course line. It is also useful for navigation, so you can be using it for navigation, and you can also be using it for landing. So it's quite handy. Just keep in mind that if you go down here and you change the nav source to FMS, you won't have that green line. Okay, so if you're turning this around and wondering what's going on, there's no green line. It has to be in nav mode 1 or 2. So I'm just going to leave it back in nav 1 for the moment. Up here then we've got the vertical speed. The vertical speed lets us tell the plane how quickly up or down we want the plane to go. So do we want us to ascend and at what rate? So we'll see some information that comes up alongside the altitude, and we can change that so that it'll be going up or down at that rate in vertical speed or feet per minute. Then we've got here VNAV. Now VNAV is useful for telling the plane we want to be at this altitude at this waypoint, and the plane can then make sure that it calculates we are at that altitude at that waypoint, and that's what the VNAV can do. So it'll have a whole bunch of information in the flight computer, and when we click VNAV, it'll be following that information, making sure we reach those altitudes at those waypoints. Just below that, we've got basically an auto throttle. So if I left click once, we can put it into manual mode, and then you can sort of hover above it. It's a bit horrible to hover above. I haven't found a shortcut to this at the moment. But if you can hover above it, you can then change the airspeed, and you can give it an airspeed to hold. So say we go and put in like 300 knots. 320 will do, so there's 320. And so to activate it, we would be pushing left, shift, and R on the keyboard. So one thing we've got to make sure that this little switch in the very top here is moved over to manual mode. You can do that with, if you can find the spot to click on. We'll see if we can find the spot for you. There you go, engage. So you're just making sure that this little thing is going over to manual mode. And then you can push left, shift, and R on the keyboard, and it will hold that speed which you've got up here. In this case, I've gone and put 320 in. and to turn it back off, you can hold down left shift and R. If you want to set a point like your current speed as your new speed, and you don't want to have to worry about spinning this around, a shortcut is to hold down left alt and R, and it'll get your current speed suddenly, and it'll make that the new number. So you don't have to worry about turning around this. So that's just a tip. Up here is the FLC, the flight level change. The flight level change is making sure that we are going up or down, descending or going up, climbing, and keeping our speed as we climb. So it'll make sure we maintain our speed as we climb or if we descend. That's what the FLC is about. If we've got FLC enabled, it's going to make sure that we keep that current speed, that we'll hold it in our climb as we go out. Then next to that, we've got the AP button. This is probably the most important button. It doesn't really look any more important than any of the other buttons, but that is our autopilot button, and that turns on the autopilot and it turns off the autopilot. So it's a very important button. It engages the autopilot. To turn it on, we're just pushing it once, and to turn it off, we push it again. Then we've got the nav button, which is the navigation button. The navigation button will be making sure that we follow the line. At the moment it's not all white, but if we go and bring up this line, you can see the white line. That is what the navigation computer at the moment is going to be following. So that's what we're talking about. So it's just one of the steps we need to do to get the navigation computer to work. We need to make sure that the autopilot is on, and then we need to make sure the navigation button is pushed. We also, if we're following the FMS, that white line I was showing, you also need to make sure that this here, I'll go and look over it a bit closer. We need to make sure that this here, the nav source FMS, is also in FMS mode. It's not on nav 1 or nav 2. We want that to be on FMS. So there's that as well. Then we've got up here the heading mode. So heading is just changing our heading. We can look down here and we can see a tiny little light blue button just below the N. So if I go and start moving around the heading, you'll notice that I can move that. Again, I hate the fact that I have to hover above these things. There must be a better way to change the heading information. But if I turn it around, you'll now notice I've got it to the east. So we've got it to the east, and then that's the heading button. So you turn on the autopilot, then turn on heading, and then the plane will keep following wherever we tell that little green dot to go. So if we want to then change to the south, we'll keep turning this around. Not going to really use that on this flight, but you would definitely find that useful. Then next to that, we've got the approach button. This is the button we push to make sure that we come down on a glide slope when we have got to the point where we need to enable it. So that's the approach button, is associated with the glide slope and making sure we bring the plane down. Then next to that, we've got the altitude button. So we can set an altitude. At the moment it was nothing in there, but the speed is on the left, just so you're clear, and the altitude's on the right. And we're going to change this to 19,000 if I can do it really easily. If you know the keyboard shortcut to do this, that'll be cool. In fact, I'm going to try and look up the keyboard shortcut eventually for this. There's a bunch of things that are very different with this game, and a lot of the things that I do not work with this game. So they're all unique in many ways, for me at least. But what we want to do is we want to change that to 19,000. And if you want to put on the altitude hold mode, we'd left click once on AP and then left click once on ALT, altitude hold mode. That will hold the altitude. Then we just got another FD and another course selection. So that's all that information. That's a little bit more background. If you want to go out and try and learn more, please do. That's just a little bit of background information on that autopilot panel. We've got our flight today, and we're going to be flying out of Santa Barbara, as we know. And we're going to be going down towards San Francisco. And on here we can see some information. We can see EDDY, we can see SIDBY, we can see all these waypoints, SEPIN and AXMAL. What I have got for us is the real information for one of the maps, or close to the real information. Seems to be fairly current up to the 10th of September 2020, and we're making this video in August, so it still seems to be fairly valid. And we're looking at San Francisco International Airport, RNAV. GPS mode is the important thing we can get out of this. It's going to be a GPS information for landing. Runway 28R. Z runway 28R. So what we can see down here is we can see EDDYY. Then we can also see SIDB, and then we can also see SEPIN, and then we can see SEPIN. So we can see all the names matching up, AXMO, and then we can see the actual runway. What we know is that EDB, we should be at 6,000, so we should be at 6,000 by EDI. We should be coming down to 4,000 by SIDB, and then we'll be coming down to 3,000 at SEPIN. Then we'll be going further down to AXMO, and then if we have a little look down here, we've got an actual sort of glide slope information. So it says the angle is 3 degrees, and then it says at AXMO we would be at 1800, and it's got a little star here. So at AXMO we want to make sure that we're at 1800 with a star. Now we should have some other information just up here, just above AXMO. It says FAF, which means final approach fix. So that would be the final point where we would want to making sure that we are coming down that glide slope from 1800 all the way down onto the runway. It's got some further information here about what you would do if you need to make a missed approach. So we can see like there's a racetrack information, and there's all of the procedures to following a missed approach, but we're not going to be doing a missed approach, so we're not worried about that too much. But that's just some of the other extra information that is on here. What we're looking at is the AXMO, and what's very interesting is this is all matching up with what we can see in the game. So they're using the actual real names on the real approach charts in the game, so that's very, very cool, and you can sort of see how that relates a little bit. But at SEPIN, the important thing is we can see up here SEPIN, we're at 3,000. And then at AXMO, we want to make sure that we're at least at 1800 by AXMO. And then from AXMO, we know from up here, it says FAF, that's the final approach fix. We would be taking that down to the runway. Just some additional information. Normally, as I understand, category A and B is for small planes, and then category C and D is for your bigger planes. But I'm not entirely sure I can give a lot more information than that on the categories. But that's just some background information. We can see the elevation 13 up here. We can also see the number over here. So that's some additional information we can get from the map. But at least we've reviewed a little bit of the approach before we've got up into the air. So let's get rid of this for the moment, and we'll jump back to the game, and we'll think about what else we need to do to get ourselves up into the air. I think at the moment, I just want to change my camera to co-pilot and then back to landing. Not something you would need to do in real life because it would be someone sitting there, but we'd need to do that in the computer game. Okay, cool. So let's get going. I don't know if I ended up describing the speed brake. Down here on the right is the speed brake. So to turn on the speed brake, the button you would be pushing, you've got the numlock pad, and then you've got the numlock button. You want to make sure that the numlock button is on. Numlock is on. And then next to the numlock button, at the top of the numlock pad, you've got a slash or divide button. Then you've got a star, and then you've got a take. We're talking about the divide button, the slash. From the top right to the bottom left, that slash. If you push that button, you'll notice that the speed brake goes all the way down. Now you can move it with the mouse cursor as well, but the other option is you can just hit that button and that'll turn the speed brakes on and off. It is very effective. It really will slow the plane down. So if you're having difficulty trying to slow the plane down, this is very good. I wonder if I can show you on the actual plane. So when we're talking about speed brakes, we're talking about this here. That's your speed brakes, and if you have a look on the other side, that there is your speed brakes. Okay, we'll try and look at it on this side too. The little wing flaps on the top of the wing, They're the two locations that I'm aware of. I don't think there's anything else. So yeah, that's making them lift up. And when I jump into the plane and I go and put it down and I jump back, you'll notice they come down. Okay, and then the wings flat again. So that's just that. That's some more information for us. So we're going to try and get this plane reversed out of here. This plane can reverse without any help. I don't think I need to because he's going to push us, but we'll see if we can just reverse lightly anyway to demonstrate. First thing you want to do, I would just make sure that you get a little bit of forward throttle, because you may find it just won't work otherwise. And then, okay, so it's going forward, that's good. Then I would hold down F2 on the keyboard. So you're holding down, you're not just tapping it. And you'll notice at the back here, these little flaps come out, and it's going to change the direction of the air, and the plane will go backwards. Want to stop it, all you have to do, you can use your brakes, or you can just push the throttle forwards, which it takes it out of that, and then bring the throttle back to idle. If it's not working, just make sure you bring your throttle forward back to idle and push it forward again. Still not working, bring it back to idle, push it forward, and then bring it back to idle, then push it forward again, okay? So I'm just saying, just cycle through that, but you will get it out of the F2 mode. Do not hold down the F2 mode if you're trying to get out of it, of course. So you just let go of F2, push it forward, and then bring it back. And that will get you out. We're going to spin it around. Let's try doing that. This plane spins a lot easier when it's going slowly. You'll find it will not have that much turning capacity on the front nose wheel if you're going fast in this plane. I think they want me to go that way, but I'm going to take this way today because it's so much easier for me to get into the air. That was my plan before I even got going. Looks like it can see I want to do this. So we'll spin it around to here. And then I'll have a little look and see what it's telling us with ATC. Telling us to cross and all sorts of things. Okay, so we just want to get ourselves into the air. Always a good idea to have a look if there's other players, but I'm pretty certain at the moment I don't think I've got other players on. We're trying to make this game run as smoothly as possible. I'll just come to a quick stop here so I can have a little think in case I've forgotten anything. Everything seems to be okay. The big thing is we've got our altitude ready and we've got our speed there ready. We can hit all those things, and this down here is set to FMS mode. So that's also important. I can click my timer and I can click start. And the other thing I can do, well, you would have done it in parking, but we're in a computer game, is I'm going to just bring up my fuel gauge screen, and I'm just going to change our fuel to make sure that I've got a bit of fuel because we've been talking for a little while. We'll put it at 80%, that should be more than enough for this flight. So I'll just close that down, and now we are ready to go. So I'm just going to hold down the wheel brakes, give the plane a little bit of power. It will cycle up. I'll let go of the brakes. I'm just going to let the plane go along slowly for a few moments so I know everything's stable. Everything looks fine, and then we're going to give the plane full throttle. We'll be able to take off around 150, 160. I know in DCS, Digital Combat Simulator, sometimes we are pushing forward on the joystick to actually keep that nose on the ground. So we're at 160, I'm going to pull back. And we'll have a positive rate pretty quickly. Gear up, and then we can put our flaps up. I'm just keeping it around about 10 here at the moment. We're heading out. I'm going to have to look at the map just to, oh gosh, have a look at where we are. There we are there, so I'll let it spin around to the right. We'll do a big loop. And bring our throttle back. So to enable our auto throttle, I can hold down left shift and R. So that's our auto throttle enabled, and you should hear a change in the engine. And then to enable our autopilot, we're going to just go over to here, left click once on autopilot. Not going to do anything yet because we've now got to also click on the nav button. So I'll click the nav button very shortly. The other button I can hit is VS mode, the VS button, and then I can tell it to go up at a certain speed, so we'll slow down the crazy incline. We'll make it something more along those lines, 1200 feet per minute. And then we're going to click on the nav button very soon. With some luck, it should catch it. We'll click nav button, we'll see how we go. There we go, click nav button. So that should now be able to fly a little bit. We'll just keep an eye on how it's going just to make sure that it's off and away on its course that we want to go today. We can also go down to here and we can have a look at our flight plan information. This will populate soon. If you click it and think, oh, there's nothing there, just wait. And can you see how long that took? That's what I mean by just wait. It takes a little while. And then we look down here and we've got some more information. So it takes a little while. If you click it and you're expecting an instant response, you may not find that. I've got no wind information there, so we're just going to go over to here. PFD settings, wind, and option 3. And that's now enabled as well. Looks like it's doing okay. It's very slowly going to take us up to 19,000 feet. It's got itself onto the path. "49 seconds until that next point." It's not very long at all. Now there is sort of like a half bank mode here, but we're not going to turn that on. You can turn bank mode on or off. We're going to leave that off for this flight. I did look up some information or the maintenance manual for this fuel boost pump and the Citation jets, and then how there's warnings and they can just make sure it turns on and that sort of stuff. But as far as I can tell, the only reason you'd be using this would be in an emergency at this point. I'm not really sure how you would be needing to use that just to do a general flight in the game, essentially, at the moment. I don't know how that would improve your gameplay. But yes, I did a little bit of research on the fuel boost pump, but that's about all I can make out of the maintenance manuals at the moment. Up here we've got a barometer, so if you're on the ground and you wanted to had an airport way up in the hills and you just wanted to have a fix on what altitude you needed to get back to make sure you landed at that runway at this high altitude, you could use the baro. That's one use you could make it for, at least for gaming. But yeah, that's changing your altitude essentially to match what the current weather conditions are. This here, the range, this is really kind of useless because as far as I can tell, it's just changing the map down here in this tiny corner. So you can go and scan above it and just use the mouse wheel and turn it around. You'll notice it zooms out and in, but it's so small anyway that I can barely really make much use of it. So if you can make it full screen or something, that'd be cool, but it doesn't affect this in any way. So that's what that is. I haven't found too much use for that. As for all the other buttons, some of them are kind of clickable, others tell you not operable, but I haven't found any way to make any of these do anything at the moment. Now they may work later. I'm doing this in like the release week of the game, so I can't comment on how it's going to be fixed in the future, but just at the moment, I can't give you guys any functional with this. This don't seem to be doing anything, all of those buttons. So yeah, there's that. But that covers that panel and then that panel. There's quite a few buttons on here which are not operable at this point in time. The plane still also has a problem with the range, the distance endurance. It's been mentioned plenty on the forums, but I'm hopeful that by the time many of you watch this video, that will be fixed by Microsoft, Zendesk, and Asobo. But just at the moment, it can't do 3,500 nautical miles, no matter what we do. So, yeah, it's it sort of changes your plans. If you're trying to do a flight, you know, it's not going to reach that. You would have to jump up into the menu and just manually do a refuel during the flight if you wanted to seriously do that flight in this plane. A lot of the fun for me is seeing if the plane can make that destination, if I've chosen the good, you know, altitudes to make sure that I have got my fuel efficiency up to be able to make that distance. But if the plane's module doesn't have that right in the first place, then we're not gonna, that's the end of that for the moment. So we can do other things like what I'm doing at the moment, just going through the functions on the plane and making sure we understand them. Down here, we've got a waypoint info, and if you were trying to work out what an ILS code is or the frequency of a runway, you can click on waypoint info, you can click on airport, you can click select airport. I'm just going to use Sydney as an example, YSSY, and click enter. You can see here it brings up the airport, some cool shadow work there. And then you can click on Freaks, REQS, FREQS in here, and you can actually see a whole bunch of information about the ILS codes. And this is used for almost every runway in the game. So you can go to the map, work out what the code is, jump into this plane, and then go down to this screen here, and you can get those codes. Now you don't need to write them down on a piece of paper. So say you wanted to put ILS runway number into your comm radios, or your navigation information, depending on what you wanted to take out of here. You can left click on it, and then you can click on what you want it to go to. So in this case, we want it to go to either nav1 or nav2 as the active or the standby. So we'll click on the standby. It's going to be 109.90, just so we remember, and we'll click on standby. And then if we go up here to audio and radios, we can see 109.90 is the standby on navigation 2. So that's what we just did then. But that's just a quick way of getting it into your radios without you having to click anything. You can go back and you can change it to whatever you want. We want to make it something else, 109.70. We can left click that, click on standby, and then we can check, and it will be 109.70. So just a quick way of putting it into your radios as well. Someone did mention that in the comments. I was aware of it, but I probably wasn't going to do it on whatever video that they did watch. So thank you very much for that information. Highly appreciate that contribution. I just wanted to mention that also now in this video so that the rest of you know if you haven't seen that comment. So that's good. Everyone can learn. At the moment we're still in FMS mode. We've got our timers up. We've got 10 minutes. And yeah, that's mostly everything we need to know. We'll have a little look outside because we haven't done much of that. We're just having our head stuck in here, and we've got this crazy game with good graphics, and we haven't looked outside. So let's do that. A lot of this area I haven't really looked at much, but oh my gosh, look at the scenery down there on the beach. If you didn't know, you can hide the HUD information. So I suppose some of you may want the HUD information. But if you are wanting to look at the scenery, obviously you can put on the option to hide that. And then you can just jump to the external camera and you can just see the plane and the scenery. You can look down. We'll probably look over there for a little bit. One thing this game seems to do quite a good job of is the elevation data. It seems to have some pretty good elevation data, matching close to where there would be a hill or a ridge or a mountain. The elevation data in the game is very good. At least enough for gaming purposes. So plane's just going along here, cruising. We've got good weather. We're doing good weather for a couple of things, just so we can keep our frame rate high, and also so that we can record at the same time, because recording takes a bit of a hit to your computer. I'm using a 3900X at this time, and a 1080 Ti. There should be new graphics cards mentioned at the start of next month, but at the moment we don't have any information on that. We know Nvidia are announcing some new information then, but there's nothing official past that. We'll just jump back into our cockpit, see how we're going, or how we're tracking. We're coming out of Gorch and we're heading towards Speak, and we'll be well on our way. This should be a relatively short flight. I was trying to aim for a short flight, but still also a flight that you may want to actually do yourself. It would be a bit more popular. So coming into San Francisco Airport, we will be coming in over some water. We can see down here, one of the waypoints is actually just water. And 1800 is the target altitude at Axmo. So that's what we're going to make sure we're at. 1800 at Axmo. We're almost up to 19,000 feet now. It will slow down. The VS mode will disable, which it has done. And then the altitude hold mode will come on to take over. And then it's just going to hold us now at that 19,000. Want to change it, we can do so by clicking on VS and then going up or down. But before we do, we'd have to change that number to 90,000 by using this wheel to change the current altitude. So we could change it to, I don't know, whatever the next altitude is we want. Once it hits to the 19,000, which it pretty much is, I can actually change that now. I could change that all the way down to 1800 at this point in time, and it won't move. So it won't move until I push on the VS button. The altitude hold mode, the throttle mode is holding us. It's a bit boring because I don't have anything really to do, but it reduces your workload massively. But it doesn't make the game perhaps as interesting. But these jets are probably a good idea to be using auto throttle. We can see some information down here on the distance to our next waypoint, the bearing that is from us. If we bring up our lovely map, we can see over here that we've got a track point of 284 degrees. So when we're coming in for that final, we want to make sure that we're able to follow that 284. In this case, it'll be a little bit to the left of where we are. These two buttons, I know you have to hit them a few times in DCS, Digital Combat Simulator, but they seem to be functional. The warning lights, the red and the orange. Speed brake is off, flaps are off. We will be bringing down the flaps and a gear down for the landing. Over here, if you are going very high, and we can do that, we can talk about it, you've got some ice protection. The bottom button doesn't work, this one here, or it's just in, on mode all the time. You've got your gear over here, and then over here is our ice protection. So we can left click once on the wing, the pitot heat switch, the left engine, and the right engine. You can put that on, and if you're going really high up, that could be a good idea to stop any problems with the plane. You can see the outside air temperature at the moment is negative 18 degrees, so it's certainly not warm, up at 19,000 feet. So you can put this on, and on, especially if you're going higher. Pretty cool module. Hopefully they can finish the last few things with this plane. Seems to be a bit of an issue with the taxi lights. That's why you saw me just not putting the taxi light on, because it lights up the internal cockpit, especially so at night time. I saw a few other people mentioned it in the forums on Microsoft, and yeah, I can understand what they're talking about. So another thing, But people are giving them that feedback, and that's probably good because they've got a whole heap more people playing the game now, which will pick up a whole heap more problems. But I believe a lot of the problems were mentioned to them during the beta and the alpha stages anyway. But now that I have more people, they're definitely going to be told by everyone what issues there are with the game and where, and they'll have a lot of different priorities to try and work out what they want to fix first. We can see our winds down here. So we've got a total true airspeed, I should say, which is the 413 knots down here. And then we've got our ground speed. Our true airspeed is if we're in a balloon up in the sky and the plane goes past us. We've got a radar gun and we can register what speed the plane went past us at. And the ground speed is when we have a radar gun on the ground and the plane goes past us, and that's the speed that we can see the plane go at. And this difference is affected by the knots, the wind speed up here. So it's not very much at the moment because it's just 3 knots. It's coming slightly from behind. So we've got the true airspeed of 413, but with the little extra boosts, it's pushing us at 3 knots, and so that's pushing us up to 415, which explains why that's a little bit faster. But if we had an incoming wind, then obviously the ground speed would actually be going down a little bit slower. That's the true airspeed and the ground speed. This angle of attack you can get rid of. I don't know why you ever would, because it doesn't really achieve anything but taking it away from the screen. But you have that option. Of course, this is very important. This always tells you what functions are active on the plane. If you're trying to work out what is going on with all these buttons up here, well, you can go over to, well, here, and you can have a look, and you can see that there is FMS mode on, the autopilot is on, altitude hold mode is on, and then it's actually telling us to hold it at 19,000 feet. It's not very hard to see because it's just over here, but still. That's what that is up here, and that's giving us our information on what's currently happening. What is the plane doing? So we will need to make a point at which we will descend. We could have calculated this before we took off with a plan, with a flight plan, but we're just going to be doing it based on looking at the map. We need to get down from 19,000 back down to, well, basically 1800. I'm going to bring it all the way down to 1800 by that point. I suppose I could put an initial number in of 6,000. We can change that now. It won't change the plane altitude at the moment, but it gives us something to do. So just getting that, so it gets us down towards 6,000 or so. 4,000 will do, or 5,000. There we go, 5,000 will do for the moment. We've got some more information. I'll just go back here. I'll see what else I can find, the flight plan. And then if we scroll down, we can see here all the names. So we'll again bring up our map, our chart for the RNAV GPS landing here. Z runway 28R. That lighting is terrible. I don't know what I can do about that just at the moment, but anyway, the sun's coming in through the window on the plane. I'll move this to the other side. But what we can see here is we've got our waypoint information. So we can see EDDYY over here. And what is interesting, can you see how it says 6,000 feet? So 6,000 feet, but that's in the game without us having to look at any charts. Over here on this map, I'll try and zoom in, zoom. On this chart over here on this map, we can see 6,000 under EDDYY. So this is matching up with the information that we can see in the game. So the game's doing a really good job. We've got SIDB with 4,000, SIDB at 4,000 over here. Then we've got SEPIN at 3,000, where the plane will make a turning towards the runway, the final turn. Then we've got AXMO at 1,800, just about here. That's our final approach fix. And then we've got RW28R, which is our altitude of the runway. The approach course is 284 degrees. We can also see that here along the line. It says in big numbers 284 with the degrees next to it. Indicates that we need to get down to 1800 between set pin and Axmal. That's what this top number is doing. And then the bottom number is the distance, so between set pin and Axmal. It's saying it's 4.6. If we look here, it says probably 500 miles, but I mean, that's fine. It could be a rounded number. May not do points, so yeah, between Sepin and Axmal is about 5 nautical miles. And it says up here on the approach chart, we've got 4.6. Now, also, if we look down a little bit further, we can see Sepin and then the 3000. So again, that's matching up with what we can see in our flight computer, Sepin, and then at 3000. And then we've got Axmal up here with the symbol for the final approach fix, 1800. And then you can see in the game's already got 1800. I did not have to enter any of this information into the flight plan. So it's got all this information just from the map. So very, very cool. If you don't want to look up the chart for a particular thing, you just want to get a basic idea for gaming purposes, well, good idea just to have a look at the flight plan and have a look at these numbers, because they really do match up very closely with the actual game. So there's all that information. This was quite recent, as far as what I can tell, valid up to the 10th of September 2020. And the video is recorded in August of 2020, so it seems to be really kind of valid at the moment. At least enough for gaming purposes, which is all we're trying to do here. But it's very cool to see that it's matching up with the game, the information. So we'll just put that away for the moment. Come back to the game. I really wish these two, and I've said a few times, were not mirroring each other. They could provide different information. Maybe it'll get expanded at a later date, or we'll get the opportunity to have different information on each screen. But it just would be cool. We've got some speed bug information down here. PFD settings, all of that's on. There's not a lot else that we need to do. The cool thing is we can see our radio information here. It's another secondary place. And you can also, of course, see the radio information here as well. You can put radio information everywhere if you wanted. There's radios, the NavCom information here, NavCom, and then the NavCom. So you can see that's quite a critical piece of information that they've made on all screens. Did I show this? So up here we've got this screen, and you can change the zoom level of this. I'm probably not going to grab it on the first attempt here, but you want to make sure that it's on MFD home, and then you're just hovering over one of these buttons and using the mouse scroll wheel, and it should do a zoom in and a zoom out. It should be the one on the very far right, but we'll give it a go until we work that out. There we go, it is the one on the far right. Let's just move our screen around a little bit. So there's two wheels. Looks like there's a small wheel which does the scroll out, and then there's a bigger wheel at the back here. But it's that small wheel in the front one that makes it go in and out. The one closest to you, or the smaller looking circle, that's the bigger one, that's the smaller one. That small one is the one which does the zoom on this. But of course, it's so much easier just to hit V on the keyboard and bring this up, and then you can change it. So we're just going from LUCAB at the moment down to Wiggles or something. Maybe in a marker there, just off to the left. then we can definitely start thinking about descending. In fact, we are coming down from quite a high height, so I'm going to think about descending immediately. I'm going to close this screen, and then we're going to hit on VS, and we're going to click on down. Then we're going to click on down again. You'll notice it keeps increasing. Down again, down again, down again. Down it comes. So we'll try and get this up to around about 1500. Another thing I'm going to try to do is the speed. Let's try and bring our speed down. So decrease the selected airspeed. We'll try and bring this down to something lower. We'll make it more like 280 for a little bit. There we go, we've got 280. So it's going to change to 280 because I haven't turned the auto thrust off. And down comes that altitude. It's going to try and get us down to 5,000. We can see here. 16,000 now. We're coming down super rapid, but that's okay as long as we don't have any problems. This time here is going up and up. We've got a cool TV remote up here. It is not operational in the game, but it's there. And we've got this HUD thing here, which is a HUD control, but that's not functional. But it seems like it would be fun if this was functional and you could bring it down. But I can't comment too much more on that. It's just for visuals at the moment. And then of course you've got another blind here to block out the sun. Keep an eye on our altitude. We've got us way down to 14,000 now, so that's pretty cool. Almost before the wiggles stop. We're at about 10,000 hopefully by about wiggles. Closely. A little bit higher maybe. We'll see how that works out. $12,000. With some luck, it will get below 12,000 before the RGL. And there we go, we're under 12,000 just before the WIGL. Now you may find I'm going down quite early and quite rapidly. I'm really just trying to prepare ourselves in all ways, especially with these videos, because I'm not concentrating so much. If you want to set up a flight plan, you could go to SimBrief, and that could also help you work out where your top of descent is and when you need to start making movements at the different waypoints. But I'm just for today going to be doing that based on what I can see. So we're down to 10,000. And we're not quite at that WIGL yet. It's going to bring us down to 5. And I think we should be safe at 5. There's no major mountains on the way. So for just here. Should be relatively okay. We've got a lot of power in this plane, so if we have any problems we can go up again. The big thing is we don't want to be looking down at these instruments continuously. We do want to look outside at what's going on. What is the plane doing outside the windows? So we need to just make sure we're looking outside a little bit and keeping an eye on what's going on. This does give us a pretty good concept though of mountains just in the background. If you're on the ocean and you suddenly got an island coming up, you can see the island, which is very cool, the land. Very, very cool to see. Here's our engine information, it's just purring along. Fuel would be fine. For memory we did refuel it, but we'll just check. We're over 58%. So that's fine. And our speed's holding relatively close to 283. You notice the temperature now, it's got a little bit better, 7 degrees. At some point you could turn this off if you wanted, but we'll just leave it on. It won't make any problems for us. Usually you just have problems if you don't turn it on. And I have got weather effects and that sort of thing on, so the plane handling will be affected eventually. Amazing scenery. I haven't done as much scenery work in this video as I'd like to. I suppose that's what's good about just doing a separate video just on scenery, so I don't have to spend the video time talking about what I'm doing. We can just look at the scenery, which is cool. The scenery is a big part of this game. We'll try and go for a smooth landing. I just need to stop explaining things so much so that I can concentrate. I'm trying to show things like the reverses, which is quite difficult to do while worrying about keeping the plane straight on the runway. And I'm just thinking about how can I show you the reverses right now. So you're not really trying to jump into an F3 view in real life. In fact, never would you be doing that in real life, but in computer simulation, you are doing a bunch of things that are quite different. Pretty cool view. So we'll leave the camera there-ish, just for the moment. It should be fine. 4.4 nautical miles now to Kasra. We'll enable approach mode just when we get over towards final approach fix. Autopilot is on, approach is definitely not on. I do prefer to use the throttle myself. Using a Thrustmaster HOTAS Warthog, joystick and throttle. Throttle is particularly good if you're trying to do air-to-air refueling. That's very fun, so I think that's a good sort of marker to work out whether a throttle is useful. If you can do air-to-air refueling with it, then I think it's suitable. But of course it depends what your intended use is. So everything's going along smoothly. You might be able to see the throttle moving just a little bit. We haven't really spent much time. It's not changing very much at the moment, but we've got ourselves now down to the 5,000. What we can do is we can plug in that next altitude. So we're going to put in 1800. I could put 3,000, but we'll just go right on ahead. We'll put the 1800 in. So there's the 1800. And the plane's cruising along. I wouldn't say it's a very loud plane. It's quite soft, which has some advantages, especially in flight simulation. Engine and the APU fire, both off. In fact, they say inoperable, are they? Yeah, inoperable. Have a little look outside again. Coming up towards the last moments before we will make the landing. But a lot of the workload is reduced for us at the moment because we've got the autopilot doing a lot of the work for us. We can also check our speed. What we will need to do is we'll need to bring down our gear, need to bring down our flaps, need to readjust our throttle so that it's keeping an eye on what we're doing. Let's have a little look where we are. A little way to go. If we can get the gear down and stuff down by sapid, then we don't have to worry about that. Then we can just think about the other steps of our approach as we come in. Probably set our speed around about 160. Between 120 and 160. The 160 would be a good speed to be considering. And what we can do is we can actually start getting that happening now. So decrease selected airspeed. Trying to just change that number now to 160. 161, there's 160. You can see it's slowly coming down. We can get our altitude happening if we want. I can click altitude and I can click decrease and decrease. That's just very slowly coming down. It's 300 there. Too many mountains ahead, or what is the story? A little bit. So we may not want to go all the way. But if you change your mind, you can actually you can re-increase. And you can go back to where you're at and you'll hold there. Speed's coming down. You can see it's going to hold around 160 now. Could be an idea to give it a little bit more throttle. That should be okay. So it's moving that for us. If we have a look down here, whoops, we can see that moving just gently by itself. Very solid here, just around about 5,000 and going 160. So we can give it some complications once we put out the gear. I might help it a little bit. We'll increase the speed slightly, only a little bit. Just making it 65, 165. 66. So I'm going to begin to bring the gear down. Just going to push G on the keyboard. I'm not going very fast. I've got a gear down here. Gear down here. So we know that's now out and done. We may not give it full flaps, but we might give it some flaps. So we'll just go over to here, still keeping our speed for us, which is very nice. We'll just put it onto one flaps. Position, we've got some more available to us when we need it. One other thing I want to make sure we do is just down here we've got auto ground spoilers. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we set this to or normal, and that will mean that it will automatically get them to activate when the wheels touch the ground. So the auto ground spoilers, just make sure that you have it from disarm and you get it back to norm. Auto ground spoilers back into norm for the landing. The things we're going to do, well, we don't have to touch this because FMS mode is what we're using for this landing. What we do need to do is we're going to go up to here and we're going to hit the approach button. The approach button will take it out of nav mode. We'll just be back onto approach. And we can get it out of vertical sync, or we can get it out of altitude hold mode if we want. So we just need to hit approach and make sure it's out of vertical sync or altitude hold. Just cruising along. I just held off going down any further just until I understood what the terrain was like. As you can see, there's a few mountains. The current altitude is fine for that, but yeah, just until we're clear of that, we'll keep our current thing just around about 80. We can definitely start making it, and that's what you were seeing on this glide slope information here, down to 6,000 by 80. We're already at 5,000. Okay, so yeah. But once we're at 80, we'll get the plane to get us to start moving down to the FAF, the final approach fixed speed altitude of 1800. So that's what we will do there. And we can re-prepare for that because we've got 1800 in here already. All we need to do is just change this vertical speed thing. So we're quite ready. Just making that turn here. We can see. We'll have a little look outside. I think it will. Here we go. Can see it banking into the turn. So as soon as we're clear of this, we'll get it going down to the 1800. And this is a good one if you want to practice yourself and have a go. It's a bunch of information in this video to sort of give you some guidance. And I'll put more information into the description. Always please have a look at the description if you're looking for more information. I'll put the timestamp in there, and I'll also put some of the information for the airport, like that that diagram showing the chart information for this runway approach. Very, very cool. that we get the opportunity to simulate this. Still a lot of work ahead of Microsoft, Asobo and Zendesk, but the game is at least fun at the moment, and that's, I think, really, really cool. So let's have a little look how we're going with this mountain range. We're almost there, not quite. We can definitely start bringing it down. Decrease vertical speed. There we go. So it's now coming down at about 900. Keep an eye on my speed for me. I'll try and get it to keep an eye on our speed even more. You can see that coming down. We can see a little glide slope information here now, the G in that. It'll be more relevant to us once we get down to 1800. There's the mountain range, or the hills, or the elevation that we can see on the map. Look really amazing. Cool moment to catch. So we're coming in on clear, sunny weather here. So the trick with the RNAV approach is just hitting that approach button. I'm going to hit that approach button, take it out of VS and altitude hold mode, and then as we get closer to the runway, we'll disable the autopilot and just hand fly it in. Now I need to get ready with your rudder pedals. If you haven't got ready with your rudder pedals already, probably around about now would be a good idea, because we can see we're coming up to the last moments, so that we can prepare. I think we're pretty prepared. We've got our gear down, we've got our flaps down a little bit. We can put it maybe onto 2 flaps. It will adjust for that. 3000 now. So we wanted 3000 by second. If we're not at 3000 by second, we know we're doing something wrong. But we've got a little bit of time still to do that. We're just at 3800 now on that one. And then between SEPIN and AXMOL, we will engage the approach mode up here. So because it's in VS mode, it will get to 1800, and the VS mode will go out and it will go to altitude hold. So the 2 buttons we are having to worry about are right next to each other, which is handy. So we're just going to hit approach, and then we're going to hit altitude hold, and it will take us out of altitude hold. Approach mode is on, and then autopilot light will be on, and that is it. But we will still have the auto throttle, and we'll have the option to disable the auto throttle with left, shift, and R on the keyboard. So if any time we need to disable it, which we will have to, we'll hold down left, shift, and R. So what I will be doing was hitting left, shift, and R to disable the auto throttle, and then I'll click on the autopilot to disengage that. That will mean we've then got full control of the plane for those final steps of the approach. Here we go. I think we can see runways out that way. Holding very well at 160. It's doing it too well, actually. It's a little bit, I'm not making the workload even less than what it normally would be. But yeah, I really love being able to adjust the throttle just for fun. We won't be doing that a lot in this approach, but we will be bringing it back to idle. Now, if you have a look down here, can you see the little purple dot? There's the purple dot. It's coming up towards where we are. We're at 1800 now. If I just bring us, not heading, if I bring us, we can do 1700. We'll leave it there and see how we go. Here's the final turn. So between this set pin and Axmal, we will activate the approach mode. If we're looking also over here, we can see set pin and we can see Axmal, and the final approach fix is at Axmal. We should be down to 1800 there, and we can now see when we go look at the game and we look at our glide slope, you can see 1800 is the glide slope sitting at that final approach fix figure. Glide slope, the purple dot, and the 1800. So hopefully that's interesting for you to go from knowing nothing to hopefully knowing a little bit. Now I was telling you to get ready with the rudder pedals, but I hadn't been doing that myself, so I'm going to do that now. Hopefully I can achieve that. Plane's coming along well. You can see the runway up there now. A little bit of a wind. That's not very strong. Well, you can see the ground speed's 164. So we're just coming up to Axmal now. If we look on the map, we've got Axmal. Well, we did have Axmal. I'm going to hit on the approach mode. I'm going to take off the altitude hold mode. Okay. So approach mode is on. Approach mode is on, and altitude hold mode is off. We have a look at our glide slope information. Please don't seize up. You can see the dots coming down to us, and now it is pulling us down to the runway all by itself. Okay, so I'm not doing anything here, not touching the joystick or the throttle. I will do soon, but it's going to bring us down to the runway, and you can see this is the RNAV approach. It's doing all the work for us. You can see the runway down there, and I'll let it take us as close as I can just to show you how close it can get. But obviously in real life they may disable the autopilot a little bit quicker if the pilot is happy to hand fly it in. They can see the runway ahead, so everything's all good. I think a lot of pilots like to hand fly. They want to take that opportunity and get that experience hand flying when they can. But we're just trying to demonstrate RNAV, so I'm trying not to hand fly it at the moment, so I can show you as close as I can to get it in. I can obviously hand fly it in if we wanted the whole way, but just in simulation, we're going to try and show you how close you can get with the RNAV. Okay. So FMS mode is on, autopilot is on, and the GP mode is on. And the two lines, final steps for me is to take off the auto throttle. So it's left, shift, and R. And then I'm going to hit the autopilot button to disengage. So we can see this coming along here at the moment. Doing a really, really good job. This is RNAV. So if you haven't tried RNAV, please give it a go. Heap of information in this video for you to have a go at. And then from there you can go off and learn more. But look how good is that. Almost got us all the way to the runway. I'm pretty happy at this point to disengage the autopilot. So I'm going to do left, shift, and R to disengage the throttle. Hopefully I've got my throttle control back. It looks like I have. And I'm going to disengage the autopilot. And then we are just going to hand fly it in. The back wheels will touch the ground, and then the front wheel will touch the ground. And then you can just keep it straight with the rudder pedals. And you can push F2 on the keyboard to use the reverse thrust. I won't try and jump to the external view this time because we did a bit of a demonstration at the start. Then to disable the reverse thrust, push the throttle forward a little bit, and then you can just use the wheel brakes to bring the plane to a stop, or certainly reduce the speed below here. So from sort of 70 down, you can sort of start using the wheel brakes, it seems. You'll be okay. I don't know where it's going to tell me to go. You wouldn't normally come to a complete stop, but I'm waiting for the information from the computer. I think we will go left because we can. I was going to take a right there, but let's go left. If it had given me information, I would have followed that to a parking spot. Can push F5 on the keyboard to bring our flaps in. And we'll go find somewhere that we can park. We can jump to an external view. We may park somewhere that would not be normal for fun. So we'll just go over to here. One thing, I have got crash mode on, so if one of these tiny little vehicles go into me, the whole video will fail and I'll have to record the whole video again. So we don't want these little vehicles to go into me at the moment. Just traveling around. We might park next to this Neo over here. I think this plane would normally go into the general aviation area, but we will. We just want to get out of the plane now. So we've got a left point here we can go to. I'll try turning in on that one. There we go. Yeah, sometimes it gives you navigation advice when you land, and then other times it doesn't. Can't really work it out. Maybe they will be able to refine that as time goes on. It may also have a little bit to do with how much you're interacting with the ATC, because I wasn't doing very much then at all. Like I wasn't even tuned into ATC ground. We'll tune it now, but it'll probably give me blue dots everywhere. But this looks okay to me. As I say, we just want to do this for fun. We'll turn right a little bit, and then we can keep going, and we'll brake about there, and we stopped. So that's everything. We got safely back on the ground. We'll just turn off our engines. So we can turn off our APU. We can put our parking brake on. If it will let me put the parking brake on, that's very good. The throttle is back to idle. And then we can turn our two engines off by disengaging. So the APU is off, then disengage this, and then disengage that one. And then we can open these two and click on stop and stop, close the two covers. And then we've got up here left and right battery and APU gens. I'll turn that off. I'll turn the other ones off just so they're ready for next time, and then the two batteries. And that's all shut down. It will tell us we've got external power, but that's all good. We can hear that is all now nice and quiet. A really quiet plane overall, this plane. So hopefully you got something out of this video. That was an RNAV approach at San Francisco International Airport. We did show a little bit of the approach information that we took there, and we were coming up to the Axmo, and we could see at the final approach point, it took us from there all the way back down to the runway. And how good was that? Obviously, we could do that in weather conditions, which would be a little bit different to today if we had to, but we just wanted to make the video run as smoothly as we could. If you liked this video, please feel free to subscribe. I really appreciate all subscriptions. Please comment and like the video. I appreciate that as well. And thank you very much for watching. I do hope you enjoy the rest of your day. We'll have a last look at our plane as we scroll around. If you haven't got an Xbox One controller with this game, you may find it helpful to do this sort of stuff, just looking around your plane. It's very cool, but if you don't, it's not a problem at all. I'm not using it to fly, I'm only using it for this, to move around the camera. Very cool plane, this one. and hopefully now you know a little bit more information about RNAV approach. Once you know this, you can then go off and you can learn more. There is lots to learn in aviation, and I hope you enjoy your time with the computer game. Really awesome game, Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. If you haven't tried it out, please go out there and give it a go. That is all for now. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye for now.